I never imagined I'd share this story out loud. It's the kind of thing you bury deep because the memory itself stings. But some moments leave a mark that doesn't fade, moments when someone you trust strips away your dignity in front of others, not quietly, not in private, but as if it's a joke meant for everyone else's entertainment. Her name was Leah. We met through mutual friends about 4 years ago. She was magnetic, full of life, impossible to ignore. Loud when the moment called for subtlety, and yet that fire drew me in. There was something mesmerizing about her energy. I, on the other hand, was her quiet anchor, calm and steady where she blazed. I've never been one for grand gestures or the spotlight. I like my life private, my efforts steady and dependable, the small victories quietly celebrated. Leah lived for the glow of attention, for the thrill of being noticed. That was her world. I thought it was harmless at first, her constant talk about appearances, who was fit, who dressed well, who had transformed their body and who hadn't. I laughed along, thinking it was just playful banter. But slowly, I realized it was more than casual conversation, it was her way of setting herself above, of keeping me in a position where I'd be judged, assessed, exposed. It all came to a head one Friday evening. We were at her friend Clarara's apartment. It was one of those casual gatherings, music playing softly in the background, a few drinks scattered around, laughter spilling from corners of the room. Some of Leah's old university friends were there. I knew a few by name, by sight at least, enough to feel slightly comfortable. We ended up sitting in a circle, the group easing into games that started innocent and slowly became more daring. At some point, someone suggested a bold version of Truth or Dare, the kind that makes everyone tense and laugh at the same time. Clara, ever the instigator, tossed out a prompt, "What's one thing you'd change about your partner?" I remember the sudden hush, the anticipation crackling in the air, the way everyone leaned forward just slightly. I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. Leah didn't hesitate. She swirled her wine, gave a little smirk, and said, "Well, I wouldn't mind if you were a bit better equipped, if you know what I mean." Then she laughed, a light, playful sound, the kind that draws people in. The room followed with awkward chuckles. Some eyes darted away, uncomfortable. Others stayed fixed on me, waiting. Waiting for my reaction. I froze. I don't even remember blinking. I wanted to shrink into the floor, to wish the ground would open up and swallow me whole. I tried to convince myself I'd misunderstood, that my ears were playing tricks, that maybe she'd meant something else. But the smirk on her face told a different story. She leaned in, voice dripping with amusement, and added, "He tries, don't get me wrong. But it's like bringing a twig to a sword fight." The words clung to me. Weeks later, they were still echoing in my head. I didn't yell, I didn't storm out. I forced a tight smile, nodded as though it were nothing, but inside something had broken. It wasn't just what she said. It was how she said it, as if I were a prop for her humor, a character in her show for others to judge and laugh at. After that night, I changed. Quietly. Deliberately. I pulled back. I stopped initiating conversations. Stopped suggesting plans. At first, it was subtle. Leah noticed, of course. She asked, teasing but sharp, why I was suddenly distant. "Why are you so cold?" she said one night over text, or laughed in person, trying to brush it off. "Don't be so sensitive," she'd add, smiling, but I wasn't being cold. I was healing. Rebuilding the self she'd tried to tear down. While she giggled and thrived on the attention of others, I set out to regain my own sense of worth. I went back to the gym, not for her eyes, not for anyone's approval, but for me, for the part of me that deserved respect. I worked on myself quietly, steadily, reclaiming my confidence bit by bit. I applied for a position in a different city, one that would give me distance and a fresh start, and I kept it secret, letting the plan grow in silence. I reconnected with friends I'd lost touch with, started therapy, talked things through with someone who could really listen. Slowly, I felt like me again, stronger, centered, untouchable in ways that didn't rely on validation from anyone else. The moment of truth came 2 months later, almost by accident. There was an engagement party of a mutual friend, a casual celebration, nothing formal, nothing planned. I walked in alone, carrying the quiet confidence I had worked so hard to earn. Fresh haircut. Solid posture. Calm energy. No trace of the vulnerability she had publicly mocked. And there she was, as usual, commanding the room. Radiant. Pretending not to notice me, but I knew she did. Everyone did. Conversations paused ever so slightly when I entered, subtle glances exchanged, just enough to feel the tension. A friend asked me how I was, casually, almost as if to fill the silence. I smiled and said, "Actually, I just accepted a role in Seattle. Moving next month. Everything's set. No fanfare. No bragging. Just steady, matter of fact." Leia's face faltered. "Wait, you didn't tell me?" she asked, voice tight with disbelief. I gave a small, polite smile. "I figured you were too busy making me the punchline to bother with a real conversation." The room stilled. And in that pause, I finally felt the full weight of quiet victory. I met her gaze directly, calm, unyielding. She couldn't brush me off this time. There was no laughter, no applause, no drama. I didn't yell, I didn't call her out in front of everyone. I simply let my presence and my composure speak for me. Then, quietly, I turned and walked out. The sense of finality was enough. That evening, she messaged me, called 3 times, left a trembling voicemail. I didn't reply, not out of spite, but because I had said all that needed to be said. Respect isn't something you extend twice to someone who treated your value like a punchline. Now, life has moved on. I live in a new city, surrounded by people who see me for who I am, not what I provide or how I look. I've rebuilt myself quietly but thoroughly, and it's more rewarding than any reaction she could ever muster. Leia is still in her old circles, probably spinning new jokes, trying to keep that glow of superiority alive. But here's the irony, she mocked me to feel powerful, to elevate herself in front of others, yet when I left, she realized I was the one person who had truly respected her, the one who never needed to perform to prove worth. And now, she's the one left hollow, while I carry forward, stronger and quietly triumphant, no longer defined by her laughter, no longer a character in someone else's story, only the protagonist of my own.